Hello and welcome to the next episode of a podcast where I interview art practitioners based in Birmingham. And today I'm hosting Aly Grimes, who is an independent curator. Aly does lots of interesting things in arts in Birmingham, so I'm really grateful that you agreed to take part in my podcast. Let's move on to the questions. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself, about your background as art practitioner? I think you originally studied art, is that right?
Yeah, studied fine art, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I studied fine art in Birmingham, which is why I'm here, why I'm based here still. I wanted to be an artist, although I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go with it afterwards. I just knew I wanted to study art and always had. And when we graduated, I set up a place called Strix with Carolina, who you interviewed in the last project and in the last film. And we basically were looking for somewhere to continue our art practice. So there was 8 of us all together, and we were looking for a space to basically have an artist studio and set that up. And we formed Strix kind of by accident. So we were looking for a studio space, but then we all had particular different interests in what we wanted to do. Some of us wanted to put on exhibitions, some people wanted to do workshops and talks, and then before we knew it, we kind of had developed our own programme. And we were programmed up to that the whole year. So then we kind of accidentally became this organisation, but artist-led. And that was something that was always artist-led. We weren't ever really funded. It was just something we did in our spare time. But it was kind of the foundation for my understanding of how to run a space in an organisation early on, having had no experience whatsoever. So coming straight out of uni and then throwing ourselves into this new project. And then we ran that for 5 years. Well, it's still running actually. I was there for 5 years. And that was always run alongside other jobs and things that I carried out. So obviously you have to do other things to sustain that kind of project. So I worked at Icon Gallery, which is where we met, I think.
Yeah.
I worked at the National Trust, doing marketing and for the North Warwickshire portfolio. So I've always had an interest in architecture as well, and I think that was something that informed me working there. And then I worked at Compton Vernie in the fundraising department. I almost forgot then because it's been a while. And so that was really cool. So I kind of always been based in arts organisations, but in different roles. So I think that's really helped form a really well-rounded experience of different things, particularly now for me being an independent curator, because those are all things that you have to do when you're an independent. You know, you have to kind of do things on your own. So because of the marketing experience, I kind of know how to brand something, or I know when to post something, or and then obviously the strict stuff kind of gave me that curatorial background as well. I also studied curating in Venice in 2015. So when I finished at Strix, I realised that I wanted to kind of formally study it because I kind of fell into it by accident. I realised that I really enjoyed putting on exhibitions.
So why did you choose Venice to study?
Bizarrely, I think someone sent me a link to this curatorial programme, and I was like, oh wow, this looks absolutely incredible. And it was during the 2015 Venice Biennale. It was the 56th Venice Biennale with Okwui Enweze, who was kind of overall director of the whole thing. And it was kind of combined with that, so we were there during the entirety of the Venice Biennale, which was an incredible experience.
I was there too in that time.
Yeah.
Did we
not see each other?
No, I don't think so.
So that really kind of blew my mind, because it was the first time that, as I said, I formally opted to study curating, and it was really a really intense programme. It was about 6 months, but we based ourselves around the Biennale, so we saw literally every single exhibition there.
Right, so because Biennial lasts for 6 months?
So 7 months I think this one was. So
does it mean you were there from the start until
basically.
It finished?
Yeah. I actually went to the opening with the Arts Council collection by complete coincidence beforehand, and then the course started about a couple of weeks after that. So I got like a full experience of it, which was amazing, because of course with biennials most people go for like 2 or 3 days, and it's kind of like a crash course, and you have to pick and choose.
So did you organise any exhibitions during the biennial?
During the biennial, actually we did. I met a couple of people out there who were doing kind of fringe things, who were part of invigilation teams for other pavilions, that kind of thing. So we did it like really small scale, but really kind of off the record, but really amazing. So I met with artists and curators who are out there kind of my age doing the same kind of thing, and we did loads of impromptu shows. There were people who were making little exhibitions on washing lines, there were people who were doing breakfast clubs and all different kinds of stuff. So that was kind of where I formed my basis of my international network, I suppose, because everyone was there, you know, the world was there. So it was an amazing time to meet people, and that was one of the things that kind of inspired my carrying on working internationally, I guess, carrying on that international discourse.
Right. So could you tell me a little bit more about Venice and sort of the behind the scenes of being at the Venice Biennial, because I think that might be quite interesting.
Yeah, it was amazing. We definitely got a behind the scenes experience, because the woman who led the course, which was called the School for Curatorial Studies Venice, or Corso Curatori in Italian, she had loads of experience because she's obviously been based there for a really, really long time. Her name's Aurora Fonda, and she runs a gallery called A+A Gallery in San Marco, and that had previously been used many times as the Slovenian pavilion. So she curated that for many, many times, and but she also had this incredible network of different people. But also what was really great about it was that she also had amazing connections with local people as well, local gallery practitioners, or people from basically just the massive Palazzo Grassi, all the big institutions, Fondazione Prada, you know, so we got a really thorough understanding of not just the international scene in the biennial, but also the sort of more what's there when the biennial goes, which is, you know, what's left over, which is really interesting. She also had really good connections with the curators of the biennial as well. So we had a lot of very in-depth tours with the curators of different pavilions, and it was really, really amazing.
So it was like a crash course.
Yeah, it was a total crash course, but it was amazing because every single day we'd choose a different pavilion to go and analyse. So there was about 15 of us on the programme, and everyone was also international, like really international, not just European, but people from Manila, people from absolutely everywhere, China, Brazil, and they're still really good friends to this day, which is amazing. And that was kind of something, I think, because it was such an intense time and everyone was kind of in this incredible bubble all together and sharing this amazing experience. I think that was something that really bonded everybody. And so actually since we've been working a lot together and doing other projects and that kind of thing. So not only was the course international, but of course we were there during the Biennale, and the whole thing was just like this absolutely amazing experience.
So you were here in Birmingham, working at Compton Verney, and then you decided to finish and throw yourself to...
So I was working at Compton Verney for about a year and a half, 2 years, in the fundraising team, which was an amazing experience, and I absolutely loved it. But I think this experience kind of came up, this opportunity came up to go and live in Italy, and kind of who wouldn't want to do that, you know? And I kind of just felt like I needed to throw myself out there and throw myself out of my comfort zone. And
it was a little bit of a risk.
It was a little bit of a risk, kind of leaving a full-time job that's secure in the arts, which is obviously quite hard to get sometimes. But you know, if you don't take risks, you don't progress necessarily. So I definitely don't regret it, and I think it was the right thing to do at the time. But yeah, it definitely taught me a lot, 100%. Yeah, it was really good.
So what happened after
Venice? So after Venice I came home and was like, oops, what do I do now? Not oops, but I guess it was exciting because I didn't know, I had no real plan. I kind of wanted to stay in Italy, but it was quite hard to do that without speaking the language. Actually, I'm learning Italian now because I'd like to eventually move back there.
You like it, you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also felt like because the course was international, I'm really big into languages and learning languages, and I felt like I was going to come home being nearly fluent or something, and I was really disappointed that I could barely say a few things. So so anyway, I came back and I started to look for other jobs. I had various interviews at really great places, but I just kept getting pipped to a job, and I kind of realised how competitive it actually is. I mean, of course it's competitive, but I think because
to be a curator is such a niche thing. I mean, yes, there's lots of curators,
for curating jobs.
I was applying for curatorial positions initially because, you know, that's what I'd studied and that's what I was really keen to put what I learned into practice. So I was doing that for a while. I think it took me a couple of months to find something, and then by complete chance, really, I found out about this job in Birmingham, which is still a job I currently have, which is at Javelin Block, which basically I assist with the restorations of historic buildings in the Jewellery Quarter and the Gun Quarter in Birmingham. So obviously, as you know, Birmingham's full of like amazing old industrial buildings, and that's what we specialise in doing, really. So and in a way it kind of really links to the curatorial stuff, because you're working with space, you're working with existing space. We're not building new things, we're working within the confines of a building and to the configuration of a building and working out how to address that space. So I think the two kind of really overlap. And then also within this job there's also an art collection that I look after, which has got about 150 original artworks.
That seems really exciting. That's
really cool as well. So part of my job there is also managing that collection, which involves things like managing the tours of the of the artworks to international exhibitions, and managing loans, helping buying the artworks, selling the artworks, and valuing them. So it's a completely different experience to what I've had before, because I before this didn't have that much experience in the commercial sector at all. I did a little bit in London as an intern, like many years ago at Flowers Gallery, but apart from that, I didn't really have any knowledge about it at all. And I'd always worked for non-profits or arts organisations that were artist-led or that kind of thing, or charities. So it's a completely different experience. It's like the other end of the scale, but really, really interesting.
Which is quite unusual for Birmingham.
Really unusual.
There aren't that many opportunities
and there's
for the...
barely any collectors at all. So that's something I'm really interested in as well, is kind of collecting as well. It's starting to, when I work with artists within my independent projects, is when we commission something, I usually commission some of the artists to make something, that then maybe forms part of a collection or that kind of thing. So that, because I think that's something that needs to happen more in Birmingham, is to develop like a younger collector base, even if it's small things. Even if it's just at art fairs or whatever, I think it's a really good thing to kind of encourage.
And soon you are going to an art fair.
Yeah, to an art fair in Stockholm. Yeah, supermarket. Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So that's we're going because I was invited by Centrala to curate an exhibition called The Digital Diaspora, which is currently on at Centrala in Birmingham, and it's also on at Studio 44 in Stockholm. We opened that there 2 weeks ago, and we opened...
So you opened the exhibition in Stockholm,
in Stockholm already 2 weeks
okay.
ago, and then in Birmingham 4 weeks ago, but they're both still on.
And they show the same...
And they're showing the same artwork, the same exhibition, but just reconfigured differently. And the reason we're going to Supermarket Art Fair is because it's on while the show's on in Stockholm. So we're using it as an opportunity to promote the exhibition that's on in Sweden.
So what is Supermarket?
So Supermarket, I think it's been going for quite a long time now. You were saying that you've been before, I think.
Yeah, I've been in 2007.
In 2007, and so therefore it's been going at least about over 12 years now. But I think it's Sweden's largest independent art fair, and I've never actually been before, but I've known about it, and I think it's there to kind of support international galleries, but more non-profit and arts organisations. So we're there representing... So you don't have to sell there? I think you can, but I don't think that's the primary reason, although I should probably check that. But no, it's not a commercial... That's not the primary reason of the for its existence. But yeah, so we're going there to promote the Digital Diaspora show that's on in Stockholm while we're in Stockholm. And we're programming different things. It's happening over the 4th to the 7th of April, so it's on for 4 days, so it's quite intense.
And you will be there every day?
We'll be there every day, yeah. And we're basically, what we're trying to do is present like a metaphorical like screenshot of the show that's on. We don't want to replicate it, but we want to activate it or notify people that it's there. So doing interesting things that link to the artists in the show. So it will maybe be quite performative. We might be doing some print releases, limited print editions, and every day kind of something interesting, a reason to come back to the stand. So that's what we're thinking of doing.
So tell me a little bit more about your curatorial interest, because I see this pattern that you are interested in digital, and your, I think, last 2 exhibitions were about actually ability to show it whenever in the world, wherever in the world, because of the digital
because of the nature of it.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically that started because going back to Venice, that's kind of how it began. Is when I came back, I really wanted to kind of continue those connections with the people that I met and made, and continue those really interesting conversations we've been having. And I kind of thought, how do I do that remotely when everybody lives here and here? And I thought, well, maybe a touring exhibition is the way forward to do that. But then, of course, touring is super expensive to do. And but everyone had their own space. So a lot of my peers on the course kind of had a space in Sweden or in Stockholm, in Copenhagen or in Venice. And I thought, well, if we've already got the space, can we do something that links those together? But how do we do that without it being really expensive to physically send artwork? And so the idea was like, okay, well, if it's just a digital show, we can kind of bypass the physical transportation of the artwork. So therefore I started to think about, okay, well, if we just include digital artworks, or artworks that are already in a digital form, and then we send it through the internet, and then it's downloaded and precipitated into each location. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and I called it Short Circuit because it was quite literally a short circuit around Europe, because we kept it Europe-wide to start with. And but also because of the digital nature of it, because things short circuit, they go wrong. You know, when you turn on the exhibition the day before the actual opening, it's working perfectly, and then on the day of the opening, for no reason at all, things just aren't working. But that it's kind of embracing those faults. So I kind of called it Short Circuit for that reason as well, because it's kind of not welcoming, because it's not a welcome thing if it doesn't work, but it's kind of acknowledging the fact that artwork, you know, in a digitized nature, does complicate things. So that's kind of where the idea started. It wasn't necessarily the content or digital culture that I was as interested in. It was more the way that the artworks were actually able to migrate. But then as things developed, I started to get more interested in the digital nature of it and digital culture, and I started to learn more about artists working in this media. So and because of course the world is becoming a much more digital place, therefore so is the art world and artists, and there's so many now, and all working in different media like CGI, AR, VR, 3D printing. So I just really like the idea of tapping into this world of physicality and virtuality, and that was kind of the idea. So that ever since has kind of informed my choice and interest in artists that I work with. So the current show, The Digital Diaspora, takes on the short circuit model of sending the artworks from one location through the internet to another, but it goes into more depth about each of the artists and the medium that they use. So in that show we've got an internet-based artwork, we've got a CGI film and an installation, and then we've also got video game aesthetics and all that kind of thing. So it's a real mixture of different things.
So why diaspora?
So I was interested in the idea of diaspora because firstly I was invited to do this project by Centrale, who obviously promote the work of Central and Eastern European artists, and but I also quite like the idea of a diaspora of artworks, and that kind of made sense because of my interest in the way things moved and migrated and travelled. And so I thought that was quite an interesting combination. You know, could the artworks travel like people do, like, you know, a cluster of people, a cluster of artwork, you know, a cluster of ideas, all this kind of thing. So that's kind of the idea of the title, and it kind of really worked hand in hand. So that show has basically invited, we put out an open call to artists based in the UK, all from the Central and Eastern European diaspora, and then we chose 4 artists, and they're from a real range of different places like Poland, Armenia, Slovakia, and Hungary. And then we've also got a complementary art screening programme on top of that as well. So that an artist from also further afield than that. So a really interesting mix.
Stockholm. You've got some connection to Stockholm as well, don't you? Did you study there? Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. I studied there last year on a course called Curator Lab.
So you decided to do another curating.
So I did another one. So which was a completely different experience and was a couple of years after the Italy experience.
So you felt you needed some more experience, or why did you decide to do it?
No, not necessarily. I think because there was a 2-year gap. Yeah, I think it was a 2-year gap between the time I spent in Venice on that programme and the one in Sweden. I think it was because in that gap in between I did the Short Circuit project, the initial one, which was the touring exhibition, and there were so many things that I picked up during that time that I thought I want to take that further. I want to, I refined my interests a lot more during that time, and so I had particular things that I wanted to delve further with. But I was also really drawn to studying abroad again. I don't know, there's something about me that just really wants to just keep going back out there, and I'm quite passionate about not only going out there and learning about another culture, but also bringing where I'm based and bringing knowledge about where I'm from or where I practice, to the other location that I go to. So, a lot of the time people say to me, or they'll say, "Oh, Alys from London," or whatever.
Oh, really?
and I don't normally correct people ever, but I do that time because I think it's quite important to say, no, actually I'm from Birmingham, because otherwise
a bit of a local patriotism.
I'm proud of the city and the experience and the opportunities that it's given me, but also I think it's important to how is anyone ever going to know about a place if people don't talk about it and if people don't show it, because it is a place that still has a lot of work to do in terms of promoting itself. And I went to Sweden because I wanted a more international experience, and I wanted to continue to develop my international profile and also make new networks. And it was also an opportunity to do an exhibition or a programme or a project there as well. So it's another context to work in, basically.
And isn't that right that in Sweden actually universities are free?
Yes. I think in all of them. Yeah. So there was that as well.
It's a really good.
Well, it wasn't the only reason.
Yeah.
But
that's.
It's
really
obviously an incentive because to study here is so expensive, and I think it kind of sets you apart doing something a bit different as well. I mean, it wasn't an MA, but it was over a period of a year. It used to be an MA course actually. But I liked the nature of it as well, because I also was still working. I still was working my current job, and because of the nature of it, it was one of those programs where you go and come back, and then you do that several times throughout the year. So it meant that I could keep a job,
right,
which was also really, really good, rather than having to do like a block of however many months, and then
you didn't have any holiday.
No holiday for 2 years, because it was straddled over 2 academic years. So I had to take 2 years of annual leave to do it. So it was quite hardcore.
So what is the art scene in Stockholm like?
I think it's pretty amazing actually. I think, considering it's not a massive city, there's so much going on. There's something to cater for everybody. There's a lot of artist-run spaces and a lot of smaller spaces, but there's also really amazing contemporary art galleries and on a much bigger scale. But it's also nice because the museums and galleries are scattered throughout the city. For example, Tensta Konsthall, which is way far north. There's loads of konsthalls everywhere. There's of course the supermarket art fair, there's artist studios, there's Konstfack, which is where I studied on the Curator Lab programme, which is an amazing facility for artists, people doing their PhDs.
Did you get to explore other Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries?
Yeah, which was incredible actually. So on the programme, I should probably talk a bit more about Curator Lab as well. So Curator Lab is the programme that I did, which was the curatorial programme. Mostly people, it's mostly like a post-MA programme, so most people have quite a lot of experience or have their own space or whatever, and again it's an international programme but mostly European, and as part of that programme every year they take the students away, or the residents away for a trip, an international trip for about a week and a half. And when we went to Lofoten in Norway. I always say it wrong. I think Lofoten. In northern Norway, which was absolutely amazing. And the reason we went there is because there was a biennial on, and it's one of the smallest biennials in the world. I think they only have like 5,000 visitors, but it's partly because it's so far away and it's so far to get to and quite expensive to get there because you have to take a ferry down the fjords, and it's absolutely amazing. So
is it somewhere close to Tromsø?
I'm not sure. We had to fly to Oslo first and then to a place called Bodø, with lots of slashes through the O's. and then from there take a ferry to Lofoten. So that was amazing. And what was incredible about that, I mean, it's a bit like the Venice Biennale. It's like the environment is already so incredible that the artwork is kind of not secondary, but it's almost like it would be great anyway because it's so wow anyway. Because you have these fjords and this incredible landscape that you've never seen anything like. And but what was really great about this biennial is that all the event spaces were in old fishermen's factories, or like fish drying factories or caviar factories and stuff, or on the football pitch in a local school playing field, and out and about. So you kind of really engaged with the nature and the ambience of the place. The actual theme that year, I think it was science fiction and nature and how those two combine, and looking at alternative futures through the lens of science fiction, this kind of thing. So it worked really, really well. But I think that's quite a transient biennial. I think they choose a different location every time. But within Lofoten, but like in a different village or town or something. So that was amazing. And then from there we did a trip and we went to Kiruna and Luleå and Narvik, which basically bring you out from northern Norway across the border into northern Sweden. And then we came back down. So that was really interesting to kind of get a really full understanding of what it was like. And we met Sami people who are the native people from Scandinavia, and we just saw a really well-rounded, amazing picture of the country, or both the countries.
Once you try to combine your kind of day job with your curatorial practice, how does it work? Is it how are you coping? How are you coping with marrying those two
question.
aspects?
I think I'm really used to doing it because I've always done it ever since I graduated. I've always had a job, like a full-time or part-time or pay some kind of...
Well, you have to, right?
More...
Because we need to pay our bills.
Exactly. So I'm sure most people can relate to this, but I think... But I've always also had a project or something going on, and then I think I've just got used to doing that. And it's probably a negative thing, but I kind of get a bit... If I don't have something else other than work, even if I absolutely love what I do, which I do, I still feel a bit twitchy.
Like life
like
is
I
not
want to
full
do
enough.
Yeah, almost. You
I
know?
feel the same.
It's a really probably quite a bad habit. But I like to always. I think it's healthy to have something else that interests you and something else that's not related to what you do every day, that takes your mind elsewhere, that gives you a reason to meet other people and go to other places and learn different things. I've just got a very curious personality. I'm always hungry to kind of know more, but I think I cope with it quite well. But I think I'm learning now to pace things a lot better rather than, have this mad flurry of projects. And I think that's something I learned through Strix, because when we set up the space, we'd never really done that before. We never really programmed anything before, so we accidentally put exhibitions and events back to back, like 3 things a month or an exhibition a month, which is absolutely crazy in terms of practicality when you don't work there full time as well. So I think that taught me a really valuable lesson to try and pace things, do things well, and do less things but do things well. So I think that's kind of my mantra for things at the moment. But I do other things as well within the curatorial practice. So I also mentor on the Near Now fellowship programme in Nottingham, which supports digital artists, and various other projects and things in the pipeline. So
Oh wow! So tell me.
Smaller projects. So with Near now, I've been doing some mentoring because they take on 2 fellowships or fellows a year for their programme in Nottingham, which is really well esteemed for what they do, which is amazing. And then I'm also kind of getting involved with the programming side of that a little bit as well. So next month we're working with a really amazing initiative, women's initiative called Women Reclaiming AI for Activism, where they basically hack and, they recode AI devices with women's voices, and they workshop it basically. So they kind of, the end result is that you have this AI that kind of speaks more truly about what a woman actually would say. It's less biddable. It's kind of like, if you ask it to do something, it might go, not now. Or like, not
so
really.
you're thinking about devices like Google Home.
Yeah, or like Amazon Alexa or Cortana, all these kind of things, which is another thing that really interests me and is something that is kind of guiding my particular research interests at the moment, is domesticity and AI, and how AI is reshaping the homes that we live in and the relationships that we have with each other, and it's not just technology, but how is that impacting on the people that live within the 4 walls. So that's something I'm looking at developing further. Yeah.
So going back to your kind of busy schedule, what motivates you? What gets you out of bed every morning?
I think I'm just really lucky that I really enjoy my job and my curating practice. It's simply that, probably. It's kind of having an enjoyment out of something that I do. I'm not just saying that. I just feel very fortunate that I enjoy the projects that I do. I love working in buildings that we have restored, that we're bringing integrity back to an empty space, or a derelict building that has finally got a new purpose and a new life. And usually we do it in areas of the city that are formerly overlooked, or no one really bothers with anymore, or kind of downtrodden, or nothing's going on. We're trying to sort of reinvigorate those areas and bring new and exciting projects and people to those spaces. So that's probably something. But also I think working with art every day, working around all the artworks in the collection, the fact that every single day is different, within this job I have with Javelin Block, it's sometimes I'll be covered in pigeon shit on a building site. Other times I'll be on the phone to Lehman Moppin, or a big gallery or something, doing something completely different. So it's kind of these 2 extremes, and then on top of that, then I'll be in the evening probably coming over and doing this with you, or Skyping an artist in Sweden about the project, or the exhibition, or coming up with ideas for the next project, or various different things. I think it's probably the variety of it. It's never boring. So there's always something to wake up for and something to be excited by.
And how does your normal day look like?
I don't think I can really offer that as an option, because it's just not. There's never the same. There's never it's not really nice. I have a regularity in my working hours with my day job, but other than that, there's no continuity. It's always really different. So at the moment, though, I'm working on an interiors scheme. So I've developed an interiors scheme for my work with Javelin Block on a new project, which is...
So you do actually designing as well?
I've just started to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've kind of graduated, I guess, in my job. I started doing project coordination there, kind of just managing the sites and, getting to grips with them, learning so much about buildings. I don't have any formal training in that at all. I'm just really lucky that my boss is willing to kind of give me that opportunity, but I think it's partly because he hasn't had that formal training. He's not an architect either, so something about having the eye and the creativity and the vision that kind of supersedes that sometimes. Or we work with architects, of course, and everybody else, but so I've started to do more of the interior side of stuff. So we've got this new project which is amazing. It's we're restoring a 100-year-old foundry in the Jewellery Quarter into some new apartments.
Oh, wow.
To sort of reinvigorate this building that has just been completely left derelict. and I'm developing the interior scheme for that. So, and then kind of the curatorial stuff comes in again, because you're still putting objects, you're still populating a space with objects. You've still got to consider lighting. You've still got to consider the overall concept and the end result, and also the audience or whoever's going to live in it afterwards. So,
what excites you in Birmingham? What keeps you here?
It's a good question. I go through waves of Birmingham. I'm really, really grateful to it for the opportunities it's given me that I might not have had elsewhere. Like, going to London, I wouldn't have been able to set up Strix necessarily on such a low rent, or have all that space to test things out and try new things, or maybe have a job like the one I have currently. So I think it's the opportunity is here if you look for it, or if you know where to look for it, or that's something that excites me and keeps me here. But sometimes I get quite frustrated with it, because I sometimes feel like it's not come on as much as I thought it would by now, having been here for quite a number of years on and off, because I studied here. I started studying in 2009, so I've already been here nearly 10 years, despite having gone away and come back again. And it just feels like lots of very exciting things happening, great art scene, there's so many amazing people here and talented individuals, but I just feel like we need to shout about it more. I don't think it shouts about itself nearly enough as, say, Liverpool or Manchester or Leeds or all these kinds of things. I feel like there's so much more we can talk about, and so much more to be proud of.
And also, you are based, where your job is based in Jewelry Quarter. You are restoring these amazing buildings, so I suppose you also take part in this transformation. And you not only witness it, but actually creating this transformation of the district. What do you think about that? Well, actually, Jewelry Quarter, do you feel like it's going into the right direction? Yeah,
no, absolutely. There's parts of it that I really think are. I'll always stand up for the city. I absolutely love it. It's treated me extremely well, and I have an incredible experience and a really positive time here. But I think the Jewelry Quarter is coming along really well. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest transformations of the city in the shortest space of time. In the last 7 years, I think that has come on tremendously. It's just, there's areas where you think it's just, there's so much more work to be done. I think it feels like it's quite disparate. There's parts of it that feel really disconnected, even though they're right next to each other. Parts of Digbeth, streets apart, but they still have no linkage to each other.
Or a reason to go to.
Yeah, so there's that sort of thing, and the transportation's very tricky. There's so much potential. I just think there's a long way to go. Yeah, basically.
And if you could give some sort of advice to people that would like to start a career, maybe with a collection, or as an independent curator, or in a renovation of buildings, how do you
in all of those things? I don't know. I think probably the best thing to do is just start doing and making, physically, having real life experience. I think having started Strix, for example, making mistakes, taking risks, and actually physically learning how to put these things together is probably the best thing that you can do. As I said, I have no formal training. I'm not an architect. I'm not a designer. But being in it every single day, living and breathing it, you being thrown in at the deep end, you learn so much. I learn probably 100 things every day. And that's what, rather than sitting behind a desk. Of course, there's times where you have to do that, but I think physically putting things into practice are the things that make you learn the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being my guest.